Chronicler's note. There are many reasons one might continue exploring a dangerous dungeon after being bitten, battered, and charged an admission fee merely for the privilege. Duty, perhaps. Curiosity. A noble desire to uncover forgotten history. The Merry Misfits, naturally, chose money. Having recovered a rather beautiful suit of mithril chainmail from the dungeon's first guarded chest, the company decided that the only reasonable course was to continue downward until their entrance fee had been thoroughly avenged. I am told this is called getting one's money's worth. The Royal Treasury uses similar language. This explains much.
The Merry Misfits stood at the threshold of the next portal, still bruised from their encounter with the Hellhounds, but encouraged by the treasure they had claimed.
We should go further,
Came the argument.
We need a lot more money.
Harmony looked to the others for agreement. Barden, practical as ever, was ready to continue. Brenna offered the comforting assurance that anyone who died should not return to complain about it. Harmony then uttered the words that every experienced adventurer knows should never be spoken inside an unexplored dungeon.
Besides, how bad can it get?
And with that curse properly invoked, she stepped through the portal. The chamber beyond was unexpectedly beautiful. A writing desk stood beside a neatly made bed, while darkened windows looked out upon a swirling black void. Another portal waited across the room, accompanied by stairs leading farther downward. For a brief moment, a number appeared directly before Harmony's eyes. 15 became 14. Then the vision vanished. Naturally, Harmony did not immediately mention this. Instead, she began scouting the room, a term which, when applied to Harmony Gold, has historically meant touching things while everyone else tries to catch up. The chamber contained several dozen old books bound in Magitech-style covers. Their pages were entirely blank, but a phrase appeared repeatedly upon them. The Hammer of Glory. Or perhaps Glory's Hammer. The precise wording remained uncertain, but the name seemed connected to the legendary magical weapon of one of the hero kings. This was, by any reasonable standard, an important discovery. Harmony responded by flipping through one of the books as though browsing an illustrated magazine and wondering aloud how much it might sell for. Barden was rather more concerned by the darkness pressing against the windows. He inspected the room for traps and hidden dangers, while Brenna investigated the bed, with the natural suspicion of someone who believes all furniture may be concealing either treasure or an ambush. When Harmony finally admitted that she had seen a disappearing countdown, she waited rather guiltily for the inevitable scolding. Brenna concluded that Harmony had struck her head again. Barden concluded that the number was probably important. Both assessments may yet prove correct. With no clear answers available, Barden selected 3 especially attractive volumes and packed them away. Harmony followed his example, choosing 3 pretty books of her own. The fact that all 6 were empty did little to discourage them. Empty ancient books, after all, remain ancient, and one assumes that collectors possess more money than judgment. The Misfits then approached the stairs and descended. As they crossed the next threshold, the numbers appeared again. 14 became 13. The party emerged into a pleasant hallway lined with open bedroom doors. At its far end waited another portal and a large treasure chest. Unfortunately, the chest had guards. 2 small creatures crouched near it, disturbingly infant-like in shape, but covered in hair, with leathery bat wings and sharp fangs. Beside them stood 2 enormous Barbarous, with blue skin, white body hair, heavy fangs, and 2-handed swords. Barden drew his weapon. Harmony copied him. Brenna sensibly, had never put hers away. Harmony attempted to address the creatures in the rough, barbarous tongue she had picked up during their travels. Their answer was less than diplomatic.
Kill, destroy, hammer them, kill for glory.
Harmony turned back to her companions.
I think that they, want to glory us for hammer.
Translation has never been a perfect art. Fortunately, violence requires far less grammar. Harmony opened the battle with a string of surprisingly competent tactical instructions, directing the party's front line and strengthening their attacks. She then charged one of the smaller winged creatures with her new saber, striking it hard enough to stagger it. Barden met one of the larger barbarous head-on. His steel blade bit deeply, drawing a roar of pain from the brute. Brenna followed with significantly less restraint. Her greatsword swept through the towering creature with enough force to end its contribution to the battle, and very nearly its relationship with its own head. Thomas stepped into the opening with both flintlocks drawn, his shots cracking through the hallway as the surviving enemies rushed forward. The remaining large barbarous attacked Barden. The two winged creatures swarmed Harmony, clawing and snapping at her clothing. And then, something miraculous occurred. Harmony dodged both attacks. She stood staring at the rest of the company in open astonishment.
I actually evaded!
There are victories won through strength, victories won through courage, and victories so statistically unlikely that one must stop the battle briefly to acknowledge them. Brenna reminded Harmony that this was no time for celebration and instructed her to resume bashing heads. Barden answered the larger creature's attack with a brutal counterstroke. Brenna finished the work, sending another head tumbling across the floor and offering Harmony a brief lesson in proper two-handed sword technique. Harmony, meanwhile, pointed her saber at one of the smaller creatures.
The gremlin's mine.
Her strike landed with unexpected force. The blade tore through the creature and split its head apart, leaving Harmony momentarily stunned by her own success. Barden nodded approvingly.
It looks like your training is paying off.
Harmony beamed at the praise with such enthusiasm that Brenna briefly considered Barden a new and entirely unrelated threat. Thomas fired upon the final gremlin, wounding it as it continued its increasingly futile assault on Harmony. Once again, Harmony avoided its attack and called out fresh tactical instructions. Brenna then stepped forward to demonstrate the elegant subtleties of swordsmanship. Both hands upon the grip. One swing. The final creature fell. Thomas spun his flintlocks and surveyed the bodies.
Is it over?
For the moment, nothing else moved, which left only the treasure chest. Naturally, this was when the real danger began. The chest was enormous, nearly as wide as Harmony was tall. Brenna immediately retreated toward the previous portal. Barden suggested poking it with a sword from the greatest possible distance. Harmony was offended by this complete lack of faith in her abilities. She had received training, she insisted. Master Huff, or someone with a name approximating Huff, had taught her a great deal. Harmony examined the chest and, to everyone's surprise, immediately confirmed that it was trapped. She could even hear something moving inside. This was excellent work. She then attempted to disarm it. This was less excellent. The lid sprang open. A fairy burst from within, laughing as it scattered a cloud of glittering powder across Harmony, Barden, and Thomas. Brenna, having prudently placed several adventurers and most of the hallway between herself and the chest, remained untouched. Pink light surrounded the three victims. Their bodies tingled, then burned. Armor tightened in some places, loosened in others, and became aggressively incompatible with its wearers. When the light faded, Harmony had been transformed into a young man. Barden and Thomas had become women. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Harmony looked down and sighed.
Well, looks like I jumped up a spot. Sorry, Sonata.
Thomas stared ahead in silence before noting that her chest suddenly felt rather heavy. Barden began adjusting the straps of her armor with admirable dwarven practicality. Harmony offered to lend Thomas one of her bras before quietly observing, with profound personal offense, that even Thomas had somehow ended up larger than she had been. Brenna marched directly toward Harmony, examined the place where Harmony's chest had once been, seized him by the collar, and lifted him into the air.
Get them back.
Harmony, unwilling to accept full responsibility for a fairy's distribution choices, pointed accusingly at Thomas.
I think he stole them.
Thomas, meanwhile, remained uncertain whether the transformation was magical, medical, or merely an unusually severe allergic reaction. Barden attempted to restore order. Whatever had happened, surely a priest could reverse it once they returned to the surface. Harmony admitted that such a blessing was beyond her current training. She had not yet completed the 6th trial required to remove such an affliction. Thomas, complaining that her shirt had become far too tight, began unfastening it. Harmony immediately leapt forward and buttoned it closed again.
Have some modesty.
Thomas protested that breathing had become difficult. Harmony's blush suggested that divine education had not adequately prepared him for this particular form of crisis. Despite everything, Barden reminded them that the chest itself had not yet been searched. Inside lay a strange firearm with a long barrel and an enormous ammunition cartridge. Thomas examined the weapon and claimed it. It was not quite her preferred style, but it was valuable, impressive, and, most importantly, not actively transforming anyone. Harmony immediately proposed returning to the surface and finding qualified priests. Brenna refused. They had paid good gamels to enter this dungeon, and she was not leaving while several members of the party remained inconveniently short. Barden agreed that they could still continue. Priests would remain available later. Treasure, on the other hand, had an unfortunate habit of being taken by other people. Harmony asked quietly whether they truly had to stay.
Yes,
Brenna answered. And so the newly transformed Misfits continued onward. Brenna unchanged and triumphant. Barden attempting to compensate for a different center of balance. Thomas carrying a newly acquired firearm and discovering the practical limits of her shirt. And Harmony, staring very deliberately at the walls, floor, ceiling, and anything else that was not one of the 3 women now traveling beside him. They descended again. 13 became 12. The next chamber was a vast dining hall. Tables had been laid with inviting food, and yet another treasure chest waited at the far end beside another portal. Then Barden noticed that his pack felt lighter. The 3 Hammer of Glory books he had taken were gone. Harmony checked his own belongings and discovered that his books had vanished as well. No thief could be found. The dungeon had simply reclaimed them. Or perhaps they had never truly existed outside the rooms where they were discovered. Thomas immediately declared that she would not be eating anything in the hall. A wise precaution, especially given what the previous chest had done. Harmony searched the chamber, but found no obvious threat. Only the feast, the chest, and the waiting portal. Barden eyed the food uneasily.
If the food vanishes like the books...
Brenna shrugged. She had brought her own rations. And so the Misfits stood upon the 3rd floor of the dungeon, surrounded by untouched food, missing books, a steadily diminishing countdown, and another treasure chest patiently awaiting inspection. 12 remained. What would happen when it reached 0 was unknown. The Hammer of Glory remained unexplained. And Harmony Gold, temporarily no longer a woman, but still every inch Harmony Gold, was once again the nearest person to the chest.
Thus did the Merry Misfits continue their pursuit of profit to save the guild, emerging with 6 missing books, 1 oversized firearm, several decapitated barbarous, and an entirely new collection of anatomical complications. Whether this may be considered a successful return upon their 1,000 gamel investment depends entirely upon whether one asks an adventurer, an accountant, or the priest expected to correct the matter afterward. Yet beneath the spectacle lies something rather more troubling. The numbers continue to fall. The phrase hammer of glory follows them from room to room. Objects taken from the dungeon do not necessarily remain taken, and the deeper they travel, the more the place appears capable of rewriting not merely its rooms, but those who walk within them. The 3rd floor now waits, with a feast no sensible person should eat, and a chest no sensible person should open. Until next time, keep your ledgers balanced, your swords sharp, and be wary of fairies.